Nigeria has signaled that more attacks against jihadist groups can be expected after the Christmas Day strike by U.S. forces, which President Donald Trump said decimated Islamic State-linked camps in the country's northwest. Abuja and Washington have been locked in a diplomatic dispute over what Trump has characterized as a mass killing of Christians in Nigeria. For more, we're joined by Wits University's International Relations expert, Professor John Stremlau. Prof, thank you so much for your time. We will talk about the issue of the U.S. recalling some of its diplomats, but I just want to get your thoughts really on what we've been seeing in Nigeria by the U.S., those airstrikes by the U.S. forces. Nigeria's foreign minister has been at pains to explain that the airstrikes carried by the U.S. Against jihadist state targets in the northwest were a joint operation. That's the word the foreign minister used. I just want to get an understanding. How important is this explanation by the Nigerian government?
I think it's very important, and I recall that during the Civil War, and I was living in Nigeria at the time, there was never a question of religious dimensions, although the secessionists in Biafra were trying to appeal to Christian sympathies abroad and trying to make the survival of the Igbo people conterminous with survival of the Biafran state or proto-state. But I was impressed by the fact that there was simply no clear dividing line between Muslims and Jews, Muslims and Christians. And so therefore, I assume that Tinubu, president now in power, and it's, the Nigerians is a very complex society, most diverse ethnically in the world, and it is not along the lines of religion, but Trump is making the appeal to domestic audiences, the MAGA crowd, that are Christian fundamentalists, and that is really the heart of the explanation. I think it's a little bit like the genocide, white genocide in alleged white genocide in South Africa, and the welcoming of Afrikaners. Trump is a racist, and he's appealing to racist elements in the U.S. society.
Prof, one of the things that has been so fascinating to me about this particular issue, right, is how Nigerians themselves are so divided about this. In fact, some are actually even saying that Nigeria acted as a bystander to a foreign intervention. Is this really a fair point?
Well, it is and it isn't. Apparently, and I'm not following this thing as closely as I do South African politics, but it is clear that Tinubu has a problem with how Trump is characterizing this. But at the same time, Nigeria wants to have good relations with the United States and all administrations in the United States, just like South Africa does. But nevertheless, he is boxed in a little bit by the Trump propaganda about the justification for the attacks on Christmas Day that is dramatizing his commitment, and he's a phony Christian. No one has ever accused him of reading the Bible, for heaven's sakes. I worked for Jimmy Carter, and that was a really Christian guy, but he was a tolerant guy, and there was no question about the multi-religious beliefs in the United States and in Nigeria.
Another issue, Prof, I want to speak to you about is the issue of the U.S. recalling some of its diplomats here in Africa, in Asia, and Europe. We are told that this is in line with the America First alignment. What does this say really about diplomatic relations between the U.S. and many of these countries?
Well, the Trump administration gives very little attention to Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. And with the State Department, there is a separation between sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. And therefore, it's imperative that professionals man these embassies because they are concerned about development and growth and economic issues primarily, and they are really there are two kinds of ambassadors: the political appointees and the professionals. And most of the embassies in Africa are small, but they're highly competent diplomats who are there. And a diplomat is first and foremost able to put himself or herself in the shoes of the representative that they're negotiating with. And I don't think that Trump has a whit of experience. He lied about the genocide in South Africa, and he's lying about all sorts of things. But he does like to do deals, and he does feel that he can get access to minerals and to trade. But I don't think he puts in the homework that is necessary. And I'm really concerned about the loss of 30 senior foreign service officers and chiefs of mission that were serving as ambassadors or chiefs of mission.
Prof, are we then likely to see more of these recalls really around the world?
Well, you can. Trump likes to, foreign policy is not a concern to his base. And he likes to play on the world stage. And we went through this with the G20. He had no understanding at all about the G20 and its dimensions. But he doesn't like the multilateralism of the G20. And most African countries are multilateral in their government policies, and so it's likely to be. He's a regional hegemon, and he likes having oligarchs, rich oligarchs around him, and that explains a lot of his approach to Africa and the national security strategy that was published recently. Gives very short shrift to African issues.
Prof, thank you so much for your time tonight. Wits University International Relations expert, Professor John Stremlau.